During the lockdown levels that were here before level 2, the Gauteng government was continuously at work to make sure that we could provide for social relief in respective areas. And through the social security work stream of the province, we were able to provide a number of relief efforts as a means of mitigating against challenges that the people of our province would have faced. We concentrated our work among key areas, among them including food security and urban farming. In this particular regard, we can report that during levels 5, 4, and 3 of lockdown that we have had, we were able to reach 485,000 or distribute 485,000 food parcels that were able to benefit over 2 million families, 2 million people in our province. That's an extent to which we were able to deal with hunger challenges during the pandemic. We are also happy to report that during the same period, we were able to establish 73 community food gardens and expanded our food gardens to schools as well in the context of getting 62 more food gardens at the school level. What these projects were able to do was further to give work opportunities or economic opportunities through the expanded public works program, and we had 200 people benefiting in all of the 5 corridors of the province in this particular regard. What also became important from a social security and social support point of view was that we had to continue with the sports, arts, culture, and recreation activities. But during this lockdown period, what became important is that we were able to see an uptake in e-learning. The readership began to be one of the biggest biggest benefits out of this province. We have seen the readership of online magazines increasing exponentially. And that also contributes to the basics that we are continuing to say, that we must become a literate and numerate society. We have seen an increase in the purchase of e-books, e-magazines, e-newspapers, etc. That also then confirmed that investments that the province had made in respect of digitizing and wanting to modernize the Gauteng economy was also beginning to pay dividend. From an education point of view, the question would be, were we able to provide for education? And we can report that we were able to get all in terms of the revised school calendar. We do know that the grades that were supposed to go back were able to go back. We had our grade 7s going back and grade 12s going back. More importantly, we should also remember that the grade 12s, while COVID came, it caused an interruption in the system. But the grade 12s of this year have only this year to finish grade 12. And therefore, it's important to understand what it is that we have had to do. And we are happy to report that during this period, there were over 300 sites that we call supplementary sites, where young people in our province were able to walk in over and above going to school. And this is what we call the secondary school improvement sites. And we were able to get learners to participate at sites so that they could get additional tuition as a means of compensating for the loss of time that we would have had during the full lockdown. Not only were we concentrating on the grade 12s, we were able to make sure that we can provide support to learners in other grades through other means. Online support had become an important aspect that we dealt with. So was SABC Radio and other online opportunities. But we also know that COVID-19 had brought a major challenge to the way things had been working. And therefore, we had to provide special attention to the vulnerable in and those that required care, as well as those that would have been homeless. We are reporting today, therefore, that through the interventions that government made, we were able to get a total of 4,700 plus people that received counseling and psychosocial support during the hard lockdown period. We were able to get to 5,900 older persons who could be accommodated in old age home and had to be taken care of. We were able to accommodate 1,800 persons with disabilities as a means of ensuring that we do not get them out of the streets. But more importantly, there were those that were addicted, and we had to also make sure that we are able to remove them, help them manage the addiction processes, and 485 recovering addicts were contained and supported in this particular regard. We do know that during COVID lockdown and lockdown levels, gender-based violence became a malady in society. And as a government, we were able to get 414 cases of victims that reported this, and we were able to remove them and get them into shelter. So this is an indication of the social services and social security responses that government had to deal with in the period. From a social relief, we are continuing to give you a breakdown in the context of when we say that over 2 million people were reached. Where were those people? So we have given the breakdown in terms of the corridors. 531,000 of those people in the city of Johannesburg, 601,000 in Tshwane, 397,000 of those in Ekurhuleni, 334,000 of those persons in Sidibeng, in the West Rand, 311, and we continue to give the breakdown in respect of. And remember that this work was done not only by the provincial government, it was work done by both the provincial government and municipalities working together, as would have been indicated. We also give a sense of where the shelters that we've been talking about, when we say we had to get the vulnerable people in our communities to be housed, the homeless and all of those, we have also given you a sense of where the vulnerable people were housed in the province. And it is in this context that we will continue to provide for these social services in our level. The big question begs now that we are in level 2, clearly, as MEC would have indicated, the number of people that are going to be back in the streets, back in communities will be very high. The question then begs, what is it that we are doing to ensure that as a government we are able to deal with this, with the increased the high levels of mobility that there will be? There are 3 key areas in the social sector that we had to pay attention to. Among those was the reopening of ECDs, because there have been complaints about what is it that we are doing with ECDs. We have had to pay attention to ECDs, the opening of the sports, the arts and culture service, recreation services, and education continuity. As it relates to the ECDs, one of the things that we did as a province was to begin to look into the assessment of each of the ECD sites. Remember, while we are at level 2 lockdown, it does not mean that there is no more possibilities of infections. And therefore, we have had to go into each of the ECD sites that we have, look at them and determine to make sure that they are able to comply with the COVID regulations and hygiene protocols that have been set. That is the one area that we've been looking at. And we are continuing with that through the Vangasali campaign, because we want to make sure that every ECD site that's open meets the necessary requirement and follows the protocols. In the same way, we also know that there are the sports activities have been open, although spectators can go. We also need to make sure that there are protocols that are followed in this particular regard. Hence, the processes of following on the applications in respect of ensuring that when those libraries reopen, that they follow proper protocols. We also know that from the 24th of August, which is on Monday, the greatest number of learners in public schools will be coming back. Now, with the greatest number of learners coming back, there are a number of things that education had to look at. Among them, we've always said safety first. If you talk about safety first, have we made sure that there are PPEs that are delivered? Schools must continue to ensure that they observe social distancing, that there is mandatory screening of everybody that gets into a school place. But equally, understanding that Gauteng has always faced high in-migration of people as a result having an impact in the number of learners that we have in schools. Many of our schools have high enrollment. If they have high enrollment, it suggests that to maintain social distancing, some schools have had to deal with ensuring that learners rotate as a means of getting all of them to come back, or we have had to deal with other methods of platooning or whatever the case may be. And it is in that context that all of these aspects have been looked into. In terms of the scope, what numbers are we looking at when we say we are in level 2? Level 2 reopening suggests that there will be close to 2,000 ECD centers that are funded by government that will be opening. There are 1,339 ECD sites that are unregistered that have been verified. And we are wanting to also reach 12,000 of unregistered ECDs through the Vangisali program campaign as a means of making sure that we get to these sites and make sure that all of these sites comply. From an opening of schools, we have had when on the 3rd of August, we had 102,000 learners coming back from public schools. We had 175,000 that came back on the 12th of August. We continue. Now, if we were to look at the total number of learners that are coming back on Monday, we are getting learners that are in grade R, grade 1, grade 2. We're also getting learners that in grade 9, grade 10, and in grade 11. If you add all of these numbers, we're looking at just over 1,500,000 learners that will be back into the system. And that is a big number. Social distancing still has to be maintained. Proper hygiene protocols still have to be maintained. And it is these plans that the department and the social security cluster of government have had to look at to make sure that we are ready to deal with. The last group of learners will come back as we phase in. Remember, this has been a phased-in implementation process. Now, from a phased-in implementation process, it means this last group will then come in on the 31st of August in that particular regard. We have given an indication that from a schooling point of view, since we reopened with grade 12s and grade 7s, we are happy to report that in Gauteng, 99% of our schools were able to open. So over the period of time, before the 24th, when many of the grades are coming, in the last weeks or so, 99% of our schools were able to open, and 78% of schools that deal with learners with special education needs were able to open. Those that were closed as a result of COVID cases that would have been reported, and therefore we had to continue to make sure that we provide support. We have given you an indication there of the total number of schools and the number of learners that would have been affected in each case. And we keep track also both of public ordinary schools or public schools and independent schools alike, because all children in Gauteng under our care are important. A question begs would be, during this time, what is the level of learner attendance? You can keep schools open, but the question is, are learners coming in? Are teachers coming in? We are happy to report that we have seen that our people are going back to work, and it's an encouraging sign, because we want to ensure that safety first principles are applied, and we can report, therefore, that 80% of our grade 7s were back at school. So is 86 in respect of the grade 12 as indicated on the figures there. So this is an indication of the type of work that we've been tracking. The health report will continue to talk about the COVID cases. We also, as a means of ensuring that we keep safety first, we track the cases that are reported and therefore refer them to the relevant areas. Lastly, we want to talk about, with the return of schooling from the 24th, it means we now have a revised calendar. With a revised calendar, we also know that there would be a level of anxiety. The Minister of Basic Education has released the final exam timetable for the grade 12s. The grade 12 exams for this year, the National Senior Certificate, which will also include the exams that were missed in June this year when there was hard lockdown, will commence on the 5th of November and will run up to the 15th of December. We will get marking of those exams starting on the 4th of January in 2021, and the results will be released on the 23rd of February for the matriculants. That is an indication of an extended school calendar that we are talking to.
For more, go to ewn.co.za.